Hello, my fellow Voyagers, and welcome back to Soul Specs Healing Abyss. I'm your host, Ja, and thank you for returning. So, today we discuss emotional limbo and the paradox of self induced pressures. Now, I know that is a heavy topic, it sounds like, but basically, it's when we all get stuck in that, what do they call it? You can't make a decision and you're trying to pick one or two options and you're getting overwhelmed. The word had come to me. But either which way, everyone experiences this emotion. It's frustrating. It's annoying because sometimes you feel like you know what you want and then something's presented to you that seems even greater and then you're even more confused. And we reside in this emotional limbo because we respect some element of how something allows us to feel, right? It's nice to have options. It's nice to have choices. It's nice to know that when presented with opportunity, we actually take the time to stop and think about it because, for myself, I am I would say when I was younger, I was a lot more hedonistic in my actions. And so I would just jump into stuff right away without thinking about it. And then I would look back and be like, oh, actually, that other option was better. And not maybe that it was better, it just had a better outcome, at least perceived to us, because we really don't know if we took that other option, if it was actually going to be better or not. It just is that perception of. So now with this feeling, we end up respecting some spectrum of tolerance that becomes this self-induced pressure, right? Like now we have this personal pressure that becomes a part of the discipline process of how we now decide we're going to train ourselves. So let's say you have an opportunity to go on a trip and you don't trust that the trip is legit. Someone's like, oh, we're going to pay for the tickets. We're going to pay for everything. All you have to do is just, take care of your own food and stuff. Most people are like, airfare too? You're like, yeah. And they're like, this don't sound right. This sounds too good to be true. And then your friend's like, hey, we're going to a party. You want to go with us? Blah, 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 blah. And so now you have this choice to go jump on a plane and take this opportunity or just go party with your friends, which most people will pick the discipline of what they already know because they've allowed themselves to build up pressure and excitement towards something. And if they've been let down in their childhood before, remember all those times? Like, I don't know, for some people, for me, I understand the plight of my parents and how societal economics and different things affected them and how they could give to us. So that part I get. But there were still moments where they would say, hey, I missed that gift on your birthday. I'm going to try to get you something. Or, Christmas comes around. Oh, we don't have it this year. So I'm going to try to get it. And you have an expectation now built, right? Now you're thinking something's going to happen that doesn't happen. And then as time goes on, nothing happens. And most adults think that kids forgotten, but really they don't. They just swallow that and they add it to the pressure. And then this pressure is now how they discipline themselves to walk out into the world and interact with others, which is how we build mistrust, right? This is how we get to that place of not knowing how to give without giving too much of ourselves. So first, let's define emotional limbo. It is a state of emotional uncertainty or instability in which an individual feels stuck or trapped in their feelings and cannot make a clear decision or progress. Now, often, this involves some sense of indecision, right? Confusion or ambivalence about one's emotions, desires, or even how they approach particular situations. Because if you're stuck in emotional limbo and people are trying to give you a ton of choices or options or directives, you're going to start feeling overwhelmed. Most people, and I know for myself, I used to get a lot of anxiety as a kid because I didn't like attention, but I got attention because I was really tall and people had no choice but to look at me because they thought I was an adult. And turns out I'm just a kid, I'm just a kid living my life. And I had all these extra pressures around me telling me who to be and what to do and how to live. And that started to make me grapple with conflicting emotions. And so I know most people grapple with emotions this way too, because it becomes challenging to move forward and resolve issues or make choices when you don't have true clarity. When you're taught to not trust, because remember, it's a byproduct of everything. Not everything is going to be perfect the way it needs to be or the way we hope it to be. But we have to know that every emotion that we attach to an expectation becomes a little baby. And either it's going to be born or it's not. And unfortunately, if it's not, that becomes trauma, right? That becomes something that feels like it should have had the chance to live or a choice, but something took it away. Now, don't misplace my words. This is all soul work. I am not speaking about physical bodies of anyone. Whatever someone chooses to do with their body is their choice. I'm speaking about soul work, because every day we are choosing to make emotional babies, right? We bring something into this world. We don't really know how to take care of it, but we like the excitement of it, of the thing, right, before the thing. And then when it's born, if it's overwhelming, we just drop it, or we try to make it something that we now feel we'll get back to later. And this starts to create a bit of resistance, right? Because now there's a lack of clarity around resolution. And if you mark this state in your life as a checkpoint, individuals, like, they may start feeling like emotionally suspended from you or unable to connect to you or attach to you, because now you're giving the same energy that was given to you as a kid of, I will make promises or I will make decisions based on what I feel is correct. And everyone's not going to agree with that. Let me tell you this. You're not going to make everyone happy. But you do have to know that if the path you're creating is crushing others, you can always take a path that's unbeaten and check the path and check the course and try to make sure you clear it as best as possible and be conscientious, which gets you to better clarity of choice. But if every choice you make is bulldozing over others or bulldozing over your own emotions, then yes, you're going to start making individuals feel distant from you. And then we're going to start to find this path of emotional, I would say instability. But if you really focus on yourself and you understand that you're aware of it, it can be the dualistic side, which is emotional stability and clarity. So we always have a choice when we encounter emotions that are not our own and we start recognizing the impact of mental health. This is when we start understanding that, this is not my journey. This is not my storyline. So whose is it? Because a lot of the times we blame the emotional and mental health on the avatar. The avatar is literally the battleship. It's experiencing all of the elements, all of the pressures. It's just existing as a tool to what we call this experience. So it can't help but take in all of the trauma. So we have to know how to alleviate some of that pressure as the soul, right? Remember, we are the soul that are driving this spaceship. We hijack this body, and then we expect it to do what we want when we want, and we just start pushing all these different buttons just to get it to go. But we never even let the ship warm up, right? We have to let it feel itself, let the energy and the fluids that run it flow through it, find its center of balance, get back to self, and then that's when we're able to walk out of that emotional uncertainty and indecision that arises in mental health, right? Because mental health literally is unresolved issues and fear and lack of closure. And this significantly impacts how we now approach the world. If our mental health has been traumatized and people are ignoring our cry for help, now our emotional health is going to be tethered to every single thing we think. And now this is how we lead into our chronic stress and anxiety. This is how we start getting potential signs of depression and not taking care of ourselves. This is where strained relationships start to happen because we start distancing ourselves from people and not wanting to deal with not so much them, just the energy it takes to engage. You know, a lot of people forget when I used to get depressed, it wasn't about people. It was like, I don't have the energy to engage with any of you. which made me more depressed, right? Because it's like, you feel bad that people are thinking of you, but at the same time, you really don't know. Some people are just out there eating up everyone's energy. So that's another topic for another day. But the main thing is that all of this starts to diminish our self-esteem. This is how emotional limbo is born, because now we don't trust our own thought process. And if we start feeling a certain way, if we get used to a certain thing that feels good a certain way, even if it's wrong, this is where that self-induced pressure comes into play, right? Even if something is good for us, if we have been taught that it's wrong or not to expect it, we're not going to choose it. And then we're going to find out later that we should have chose it, and that's going to create more depression, more self-esteem issues, right? Coping and recovering strategies are necessary at this point, because no matter what anyone would try to tell me, no matter who I talk to professionally, no matter how much self-help stuff I read, those are the tools. I, the physical avatar, had to agree to participate with the soul, because remember, when you go into depression, the soul is saying, I'm tired. Anxiety, other things, that's the body too. But I feel for myself, emotional depression is when the soul is like, I'm done. There's mental depression that has clear signs of someone's tapped out. And there's the emotional one where you're still here, you're still present with people, but you're masking and you're off in another world, right? That's the part that I know I had to work on myself. And so I had to start coming up with, how do I get out of this state of stuckness with all the professional help, with all the self-reflection, with all the mindfulness and supportive relationships I had around me? How do I now take myself out of this hole? Because for a long time, I saw all the ladders. I saw people dropping ladders into the hole, and I'm just like, I don't trust that ladder. Someone's going to come save me. Someone's going to throw a rope down, and they're going to pull me out, and they're going to do all this. And I started to think about it, and I'm like, that is something that was given to me and many of us in our childhood. We are romanticizing the savior complex. We are romanticizing someone saving us. I love all of my childhood cartoons and conglomerates. I don't need to say their name, but we know who they are. And they have all these movies based around being saved. Again, I love that aspect because it was about love and adventure and fighting for something you believe in. But there was also a level of, damsel in distress where we're all just waiting for someone to come save us. And that's not how life works. You have to make decisions. You have to know how to make clear-cut decisions that will help you along this journey. Because we have our higher self. We have our spirit. That's who I feel higher self is. We have our soul, which is the the energy driving our spaceship, our human flesh. And then the human flesh itself, that is the ego. It has its own conditional thoughts and beliefs that it's been trained to follow. So understanding how all three of those work together is how we start recognizing that there's an understanding of who we're talking to at all times. Because remember, there's energies that have been put into us to convince us that we hear a certain voice and that's our voice, but it's really just conditioning and imprinting. There's voices we hear that we believe is our voice, but really it's just conditioning of media and things around you that you consume. And then there's voices that you think are dark and evil, but really those are just the voices of the parts of you that you abandoned, and they're frustrated, they're mad, and the only thing they have is disdain, right? If you're stuck in a hole with your back against the bottom of the hole and you have nowhere else to go, and it's just, you're deep, there's nothing coming to get you. And instead of going back the other way, you just keep digging a hole, hoping that you get through, and they just end up hitting a wall on that hole. There's parts of us that exist like that, just at the bottom of a hole who are just mad. And it's like, you left me here. I don't feel love. All I feel is pain. So pain becomes disdain, and disdain becomes anger, and all these other things, and all of these emotions that everything has layers. That's the point of understanding. We are a cell that becomes many, many, many different cells that add up to become tissues, and these tissues become muscles and organs and a whole system, right? This is that part of recognizing this state and its consequences of not being able to recognize emotional stability. Because if we don't take our own mental health and well-being into account, we're not going to take others into account, right? Because when you're trying to address the root cause of something or you're trying to seek support, you're not looking for people who seem like they're doing better than you. You're looking for people who feel like they feel like you. And this is where we start creating trauma bonds, right? This is where we keep creating these paradoxes, these small little subcultures of worlds where love exists, but it's not love that's healed. So it's a never-ending cycle of you feel like you're complete and then you bleed out because it's an open wound still. You're going to have to know how to take yourself out of that. Once you get what you need to get out of it, this is why tribes are important. I don't think any tribe is not important. I don't think any emotion is not important. Everyone has the right to feel mad, upset, pissed off, angry, just abandoned, sad, whatever. But once you get what you need to get out of it, go back to the other side. Get love, feel family, feel community. Try to find something that brings you back to self. Because if you stay stuck in other people's disdainment too long, you're going to stay in emotional limbo. Any choice you try to make, you're going to think you're doing it out of imposter syndrome. You're going to believe that you're not doing it correctly because the people around you, they're not doing it. And if they say it's too hard or too much or you need a certain type of experience to do it, you're going to trust it. You're going to believe it. And it's essential to understand that the steps forward of breaking free from emotional limbo are about you understanding that personal pressure plays a pivotal role in the experience of how you're going to continue to contribute to the onset and perpetuation of how you now make decisions. This, I feel, is the number one thing that confused me as a teenager and confused me even as an adult now, because you can ask someone a direct question and instead of giving you their experience of what they think they know, they assume they're not knowledgeable enough to give you that information, and they say, you'll find out, you'll learn, so now you're stuck. And the only people who are giving you information are people who sometimes have good advice and sometimes it's distorted. And then this distorted view becomes culture, right? We have to pay attention to the pathology of how this all works. Everything that we do and think becomes the culture of how we now act and represent ourselves, and then other people adapt it, believing it's you. And this is how we start becoming an identity of an ideology that, again, if that's your choice, that's your choice. But make sure it's a choice that you're choosing because it's aligned who you. It's not something you're choosing because it looks good or it feels good. Listen, feeling good is important, but knowing that you feel fulfilled is an extension of feeling good, because you can feel good when you eat something momentarily, but if you overeat, now you don't feel good. Taking it to that next level of fulfillment is, this tastes good, I enjoy it, but I don't need to eat the whole thing, let me stop. I'm fulfilled, right? This is that pressure of how we put things on ourselves to make ourselves feel like, well, I'm supposed to. I was a big kid when I was young, so I thought I was supposed to finish my plate. That was literally built into me. No matter how much food was put on it, no matter my needs, it was about someone else's emotional needs. If I put work into it, I feel you're supposed to eat this much, so therefore do it. Now you have this pressure. It makes you feel bad. You don't know what to do. Now it's manifesting into various forms of, self-imposed expectations, societal standards, right? Then there's this desire for perfectionism. Ooh, I am guilty of that one. I didn't realize that I was so conditioned to be perfect that in my mind, I was just doing the right thing. But around me, people made it seem like I was stuck up or being a kiss up. And it's weird how it manifests into these different worlds of how people view you versus what you're actually experiencing. And then again, this is how when individuals are placing excessive demands on themselves, this is where you start creating that breeding ground for emotional uncertainty, right? Emotional indecision, logical indecision, that fear of not living up to these self-imposed standards. Again, they lead to chaotic stress. They lead to anxiety, those feelings of inadequacy, all of which contribute to emotional limbo. Recognizing the impact of how you learning to manage or how you learn to manage your emotions is essential to how you break free from that state of fostering those emotions that you don't want to the emotions you do want. This is emotional well-being, right? Because emotional experiences, they're going to always influence our tolerance. Always. You have someone who I happened to me the other day. I love children. I don't mind them. But when parents allow them to keep disturbing the whole environment, then it becomes to a point of my tolerance is not held, right? Because I live in an apartment. The kids are yelling up and down the hallway. I don't mind because they're walking to their apartment. But once they're in their apartment, someone leaves the door open and the kids just start yelling down the hallway to hear their voices echo. In this moment, I'm not mad at the kids because they're kids. They want to use their bodies. It's a tool. They want to express themselves. But the parent didn't do anything. And I'm looking like, what is going on? And I open the door and I say nothing. And I see the little girl standing in the doorway. She sees me and she just walks away and closes the door herself, which again is cute because she knew what she was doing. She shouldn't have been doing. But at the same time, it was one of those moments of my emotional experience was started to be affected by her emotional experience, and I didn't want to make her feel bad, but I had to let her know, like, this is not okay, okay? Like, there's a time and a place to do this. So, yes, I am one of those people where I will parent your child. Sorry to tell you, but somebody got to do it. Takes a village, right? But anyways, where was I at? The tolerance of expression plays a fundamental role in shaping us as individuals, right? When we have positive experiences, such as things that invoke empathy, compassion, and support, we often want to enhance that, right? We often want to feel that more. This is another capacity of tolerance, right? Because most of us walk through life wanting to feel good. We want to feel happy. We want to feel supported. And we build all of these worlds around expectations of what support and compassion look like, and when it doesn't happen, we feel abandoned. You know, this is something that I had to learn how to recognize, where sometimes you're not going to get support the way you want, so you got to make support. You have to create support, and then when you reflect it, you're going to get it back. I promise you. Believe it or not, if you really put yourself out there, you will get what you want. You really don't have to try hard. You just have to be present. This is what I'm still learning. I'm a homebody, you know. I'm shy sometimes, but I'm really outgoing if I get around the right people. And so this is why different forms of media have worked for me. This is why I do podcasts and vlogs and write, because it allows me to still use my voice and get me out of that place of stuckness, right? I used to feel like my voice didn't matter. I used to feel like what I had to say didn't matter. I used to feel like I don't even know if what I'm saying is resonating with anyone, because most people make me feel like I'm too much. And then I realized I am. For one or two or five people to constantly hear how much information runs through me is exhausting, which is why I knew I had to be on a bigger platform, because even if one or two people listen to me religiously every day, or just a few people listen to me every few months, or whenever I popped up, that's fine. To me, that is just serving a purpose, because at least the energy's out there. And if it's meant to be used, it will be used. This helped me step out of my emotional limbo, right? These emotions help me foster an open mind and accept an attitude towards living my more diverse perspective on life. It helped my background become something that was no longer negative experiences, because you're still going to have experiences that are unsavory, but it doesn't have to run your whole life. You experience it, feel the moment, now what? Move on. Because when you start sticking into those negative experiences, this is when it becomes trauma, because now it's unresolved, and now you're making your body relive it over and over and over. You're creating prejudice around it. You're creating discrimination around it. And now you can't diminish it. Now your tolerance is going deeper into that hole. Remember that hole I said you dig? Now it's going deeper and deeper and deeper to, there's nothing but a wall over there. It's nothing but rock. So we already know, because we put that rock there so nothing can get in. So when we keep hiding stuff into ourselves, it has nowhere to go, because we are the purveyor, we're the builder, we're the architect. So our body knows all of the deepest, darkest holes that we create, because we create them, right? So this is how you potentially start leading your own self into biases and intolerances, because you have to remember, understanding your emotional experience is how you're going to move about into a world where it's exclusively about how you want to be seen. No matter what you're doing, every decision you make is about some type of extension of how you want to be empathetically a part of a society that is promoting personal growth and promoting social harmony, right? No matter how people look at it, I use sports as a reference. I don't have anything against sports, but it's a great analogy because it's a ton of strangers who come together to support a team, an energy. Most people, when they go to games, some people really watch the games and they're into it. Some people are just there for the energy of the game, right? You have to recognize when you're doing that to yourself. Are you just there just to be there, and that's really not where you want to be resonating? Or are you okay with being there and utilizing that energy to motivate you to then go out and find more like tribe? Or, are you just there just to be there, and you honestly are just doing it because everyone else is doing it and you feel lonely? There's so many ways to honestly go about thinking about it, but really it comes down to, it's your choice in how you make your life experience happen. This is one of those situations where I have learned that no one is going to teach you, but if they're willing to experience this life with you, then it's not as bad as it needs to be. But if they're not willing to experience it with you, this is where you have to know how to make choices. This is literally where you have to know that life is not about being the first. It's nice to be the first, but it doesn't mean that you have to keep trying to fit yourself into this type of box where it's always about making choices. I make a lot of choices all the time, but I also sometimes just say, not for me. This is one of the things that I don't think most people understand is you can respectfully say, no, thank you. I'm good. That's not for me. I choose to not choose. And I don't think enough people say that you can do that. I think it's important to know that when you are not trusting the ego is our child body. It's going to tell you I don't want to do that. So why are we even trying to make a choice? Most people who are in emotional limbo are trying to, again, be that overbearing parent or overbearing energy that made us feel that's how we're supposed to motivate ourselves, right? This is, again, going back to self-induced pressure. Now we're feeling like we're supposed to do it a certain way, and instead of trusting our body and respecting it, remember, it's fundamental to your mental health to really understand that emotional development of how you talk to yourself is, again, how you're going to keep walking out into this world and how you're going to continue to perceive what is happening to you and around you. This is why I say it's good to, I just recently went online and it's called Everbright or something, or Eventbrite. And, I'm trying to put myself out there more. I'm trying to find things to do. And I was like, you know what? Let me try some online webinars. And for a minute, I was resistant. I was like, I don't need to go online to find friends. I can go out in public. But it's no, but sometimes you can't. And sometimes you don't want to or have to. Sometimes it's nice to just try something new. And because I tried something new, I didn't question the choice. I had options. I was like, well, I can go do this or do this. And it's well, I went out last weekend. The town is the town. It's St. Louis, so, it's a big little city. So you kind of know everything here. And I was just kind of like, you know what? I went out last week. I'm going to stay in this week and find some online seminars and check them out. And because I just forced myself out of this place of feeling I don't have anyone to talk to, I feel stuck, emotional limbo, I was like, let me go try to find people to talk to, or at least find people who are wanting to maintain healthy relationships. And so I went online and joined this seminar, and it was amazing. It turned out to be the exact type of people who I needed to be around. They talked like me, they thought like me, they felt like me. We exchanged information, and, hopefully maybe collaborate, maybe not, maybe they'll just be a part of my tribe and we are able to just be there for each other. This is the part where I was saying it's important that through self-discipline, we have to learn how to build resilience. We have to understand that cultivating emotional intelligence is the key to how we foster a sense of balance. That's what well-being is listening to your emotional intelligence, listening to how you cultivate a voice that resonates, again, with you're going to have issues in life, but ultimately, how do you get back to your positive and more harmonious interactions, even in despair? It's not easy. This is what I said. Leaders are leaders even behind closed doors. When you are understanding that even when no one's watching, you have to do the work, that's a lot of work too. I get it. Most people are like, I don't want to feel like I have to do this. No one's watching. Well, you're watching. Just like that inner child or the young child you were, now you're an adult, but that inner child is still watching you. And they're dissecting and understanding everything. Because remember, your inner child also still has all the information you have. They might not be able to articulate it the way you can, but they emotionally feel what you feel when you feel it, and they get to interpret that energy. And if it's energy that you are not healing, then they're going to interpret it as pain. They're going to interpret it as abandonment. If you understand that it's just a disappointment, but you have tools to manage breaking free from this emotional limbo, then yeah, we understand it can be tough for your personal journey, but it's also something that is required for your experience throughout life to make a better life, right? This is that comprehensive approach. It is key to breaking free from emotions that stagnate us. When you want to achieve that emotional freedom, you're going to have to understand how to regulate your outburst. It's just pivotal. This is why we say you have to know how to parent your inner child, because if all you were yelled at as a kid and now you're yelling at yourself inside, well, you have no escape. That is a mental, emotional prison. And we don't want to keep doing that to ourselves. We want to begin with self-awareness and mindfulness. Self-awareness is saying, I am presently sitting here in the winter. I'm cold. I don't like it, but mindfulness, I have a home. It has heat. I'm protected, right? Now you understand triggers versus complaining and being upset. You can say, I don't like it, but I'm grateful for these things. And when you do that, you start being able to support your guidance better. You start creating a safe space for yourself. This is what practicing emotional processing is and stress management, because now you're establishing boundaries of how you're going to choose to be accepted to be talked to. This is all that, I'm not talking anything new. This is cognitive behavioral therapy, right? I'm not a therapist, but I read a lot and I understand that this is how you identify yourself and reframing negative thought processes. This is a lot of different spiritual leaders and healers out there are learning these different methods where you have to go feel your feels. Because when you feel your feels, then you allow yourself to understand what you actually want versus what you're being told you want. And now you're pushing it down and not listening. Because there's always going to be patterns, you know what I mean? You have to hone in on your communication skills. You have to know that essentially you have to take the time to reflect on what you are doing before reacting and what you did after reacting. It's okay to assess it. Don't judge yourself, but you know what? I'm going to just make this reaction. I'm going to say what I got to say. And then afterwards, whatever happens, whatever the byproduct of you saying something is, deal with it. Let it be. Don't make it bigger. Because you put yourself in a social test to see, well, is it going to blow up in my face or not? If it doesn't, perfect. Lesson learned, people can walk away. If it blows up in your face, well, you got to eat that crow and be like, well, let me step back because now I know that reaction probably was not the best response. And now you're finding ways within yourself to seek closure. I've done it. I've been waiting in the parking lot and somebody just standing there and I'm waiting and they just going about their life and I'm trying to be polite. Eventually I got to honk my horn, and if for some reason I feel bad because I'm like, no. They understood the assignment. They were just standing there. They could move. They're not a car. This is a driveway. And so it's in that moment, I apologized to myself. I didn't have to apologize to them because they were gone by that time. But it's listen, I wasn't mean. I didn't cuss them out. I didn't flick them off. I just honked my horn because that's what it's there for. That's the people pleaser in me trying to rationalize the fact that I was letting someone else disrespect my time. And again, you don't have to be mean when you recognize that someone's disrespecting your time, but you do have to know how to walk yourself out of it and then say, okay, it is what it is. You know what I mean? and you lean on support systems and you find encouragement and you go about your day. Because when you start learning how to get closure to unresolved issues and you have a support system, you're combining tools and strategies now, right? Now you can gradually overcome that emotional limbo we talk about, and that the nurture of emotional freedom that you gain and develop when you start using skills that help you better understand emotional regulation. Again, it's not easy. When you see people online making fun of gentle parenting, let me reemphasize, gentle parenting is not about talking softly to that child. Gentle parenting is reminding yourself that it is a child. And even if you were talked to that way, did it make you feel good? Did it make you feel motivated? Or did it just make you feel fearful and scared and know to now avoid your parent and to mask and become a perfectionist to say, as long as I'm doing this thing, they won't bother me, right? You don't want your kid to get that way about you. You don't want anyone to feel that way about you. So it's important that we understand how to emotionally regulate ourselves, which then enhances how we both feel on the inside and outside, and those relationships that we create with others. It's all about the relationship with self first, which then creates the relationship through interactions with others, okay? It's important to transform yourself in a way that you cultivate that's renewed. My brand, I talk about rewrite, rebrand, rebirth. You can rewrite your own story. You can rebrand your identity, but when it comes back down to it, you have to rebirth into this new version of you. You know what I mean? You have to still do the work because it's a sense of vitality and joy that you're seeking. And the only way to get to those is by being authentic. Doing so will always allow you to manage your emotions more effectively, right? If you trust your instinct, you will trust your emotions. And if you trust your emotions, you would trust your choices. And when you trust your choices, now you have logical approach to life. Now you have practicality, and you understand that this is a self-regulating process, right? It can be done through development, but you have to do it, and you have to really perfect your self-awareness. It's not going to happen if you're just saying, no, I don't believe that. Well, it is what it is. Emotional processing is always about incorporating stress management, always. So that means you're going to have to learn how to put things in place that help you manage your own system. It doesn't have to be as complicated as I'm making it sound. Like for me, I wake up literally every single day, wake up, open the shades, let the sun in, turn on my music, get some chill waves going, burn an incense, say good morning to the universe, do a little morning stretch, make my tea, and then I turn on my work computer. Because I give myself time in the morning. Even if it's like 5-10 minutes, I give myself an extra 10-15 minutes to wake up and do those simple tasks, which puts me in an emotional state of balance. And now I can start my day without feeling frustrated, right? Now I know that I can reflect and have closure without feeling like I'm breaking down because work is so stressed because I didn't have time to get my coffee or my tea and I didn't have time to do certain. Make time. That's all. That's what this world is about. Make time. It's never going to be perfect, but we have to learn how to start breaking free from our own emotion that stagnates us. Much like a river, we literally carve every path of the rock, right? It's rough, it's tough. In the beginning, it's not pretty. And then eventually over time, when we get used to the consistency and the discipline, it smooths out. And now it's a smooth riverbed. And eventually over time, it widens and gets wider. And now it just looks still. But there's always movement, right? There's always going to be emotionals happening. Like your emotional journey never ends, but it definitely reshapes the landscape. It definitely reshapes your life and who we are and how we approach life. So if you want to get stuck out of emotional limbo, if you want to stop putting yourself in this pressure pot of do it this way or do it that way, start trusting yourself. Just simply trust yourself. It sounds convoluted when I say it that way, so let me re-say it. Trusting yourself means allowing yourself to feel free with you, by yourself. If you're always trying to prove something to the world by yourself, then you're not living for you, okay? Listen to your body, listen to your emotions, listen to your thoughts, see how they all talk to each other. Bring it back to spirit, bring it back to soul, and bring it back to the body. The body is here to drive as a vessel that gets us from point A to point B. The soul is here to navigate so that it knows we already went to point A to point B because we have a bigger journey that we are accomplishing as we go to each pickup spot and checkpoint. Our higher self, it understands that now that we have all these things we compiled from all these different places, we're going to create this one byproduct that's going to help us stay aligned with our journey. This is the creative world. This is the creative timeline. This is where you create the journey you want to create, and then you start creating the emotional stability that you enjoy, and then the opportunities that you want will come to you. I promise you, okay? So keep allowing your energy to flow freely and unhindered because you are unlocking a world of growth and well-being as we are all specks of the universe and soul consciousness. Thank you.